relates to the grant of temporary permit. However, has pleased to call the record of the temporary permit because the concerned authority has not given the certified copy to the petitioner. Therefore, I spread to this honorable court the we kindly see the record, my lord.
दीजिए रिकॉर्ड. इसमें इशू क्या था सर?
There are the two issues, my lord. The respondent is regularly granting the temporary permit.
रिकॉर्ड क्यों बुलाया था?
Because they not provided the certified copy to the petitioner.
तो हमने कब बुलाया कब सर?
Honorable Justice Saraf sir has pleased to
Just
coordinate bench called for coordinate bench on 23 in terms of the
keep available the original record in the next step. जी बताइए क्या मैडम, आर यू रेडी विद द आर्गुमेंट्स? जी बताइए सर.
I come before this honorable court on two grounds, my lord. First, I am holding the regular permit, and the authority has granting the temporary permit without following the procedure of section 87 1C of the motor vehicle.
Which is that application? Which is that order?
Yes, the application is there, my lord.
आपने नहीं फाइल की थी?
Because they are not providing the certificate.
कोई बात नहीं सर. रोहित जी, मेरे ख्याल से मैडम को जरा दिखाइए. और मैडम इसमें एप्लीकेशन कौन सी है और ऑर्डर कौन सा है? And what temporary need was disclosed by you?
Application.
वो तो मुझे मालूम, मैंने देख लिए. इससे ज्यादा समय थोड़ी लगता है हमको देखने में.
स्टिक नहीं हो रहा है सर.
अरे वो उसकी रिकॉर्ड उसकी जरूरत ही नहीं फ्लैग की शुरू के बाद.
Permit is required from C.
What is the temporary need?
The specification of the temporary need is not known to me.
Not madam, please. What was considered by the authority who has issued the carriage?
Not known to me because the provision does not ask us to specify.
No problem, madam. No problem. Is it a substitute of a regular stage carriage permit?
The previous temporary need would not be a continuation of the second temporary need, temporary permit.
I'm not saying anything else.
So it is not a substitution.
Substitution of the regular stage carriage permit.
It is not.
It is not.
It is not.
It is with the intention to meet out the emergent situations, right? Or whether the authority is required to disclose the emergent situations of warranting issuance of temporary permit or not. They are distributing the temporary permits as if they are the regular stage carriage permits. How that can be permitted? That is the only question.
My lord, if I may be allowed to make certain submissions.
I mean, for making submission, I am putting the question.
My lord, their core contention is not invoking this provision. Their core contention is the competency of the authority that has provided the temporary temporary permit, my lord. My lord may see their pleadings, facts as well as the grounds, my lord. Only one ground mentions out this provision, my lord. However, the whole of the petition is based on that the authority that has granted the temporary need is not competent to do so. And we have established how, my lord, I am a bona fide rival operator that applied for the grant of the temporary need and it has been duly done so by the authority, my lord. If the authorities are granting the temporary needs, my lord, I am applying for it. I have justified the temporary need. The section 87 1C provides that temporary need, to meet out the temporary need, I have to specify what kind of need.
To meet out the temporary need.
Yes, my lord.
So there has to be some temporary need.
87 1A and B specifies what kind of temporary need.
Let us
my lords,
come to that section.
87 1C, my lord, does not ask us to spell out the
Madam. A says for the conveyance of passengers on special occasions such as to and from fairs and religious gatherings for the purposes of a seasonal business to meet a particular temporary need. Now, merely because you say that it does not require the detailed required to disclose the temporary need in detail, whether we are not competent to interpret the provisions.
Authority may be
Whether
competent.
we are.
Mallards.
We are. To meet a particular temporary need, the word temporary need is preceded by a word particular.
Mallards.
What does it mean?
There has to be a specific temporary need for it.
Yes. Therefore, whether it is written in so many words or not, the use of word particular makes it clear that it cannot be distributed by way of a substitute of a permanent regular stage carriage permit, but it has to be to meet out the emergent eventuality. Because for face etc. वो तो आपका दूसरा आ जाएगा, और seasonal business वो एक अलग आ जाएगा. Temporary need matters in addition, apart from this A and B.
Mallards.
So where is that discussion? Nothing.
Mallards, I am a mere bus operator, Mallards.
Fine, madam. I'm not saying. Why don't you apply for regular stage carriage permit? Why you are happy?
There's a provision for temporary need. I may not be fulfilling all the requirements necessary.
9230/2020. Fine, madam. Fine.
Mallards, their core contention is not this, Mallards.
Madam, please come
It's
to.
competency, Mallards.
Madam, please.
Fine.
Just a minute.
Madam,
Please
it's
come.
my petition.
अरे यार काहे वो पर्सनली आप लोग एक दूसरे को बुला.
They're the same.
अरे ठीक है यार. She has made a submission ना. Let us not get personal. Madam, please come to paragraph 6.d.
That is in the grounds, Mallards.
Fine. Is it not a part of the petition?
It is, Mallards. However,
Is it not a legal question? Is it not a legal question, madam? Had it been a case that it is based on factual foundation, then I can understand.
Mallards.
Unless and until you set up a factual foundation, I will not touch the question. It is a pure legal question. कौन सा ऑर्डर है?
Order इसी में है. They are not required.
हैं?
Mallards, that the justification of this may be sought from the authorities, Mallards. Because I applied for it.
मैडम मैं तो अथॉरिटीज के खिलाफ निकल के परेशान हूँ. आप ही लोग अथॉरिटीज के चक्कर लगा लगा के बिगाड़े हुए हैं उनको. It is the transporters who have spoiled these authorities. No authority is visiting the house of the transporter. All the transporters are visiting. This is what I can say. You have invited this objection, this observation by making up baseless arguments. Why you are not making an application in accordance with law, madam? It is very easy to raise fingers towards others. You have invited the trouble. Yes, you are a businessman, fine. You have a right to fly your bus, fine.
10476/24. Ramakant Patel versus State of Them. 10476.
This petition under Article 226 of Constitution of India has been filed seeking the following relief. It is submitted by counsel for the petitioner that now, in compliance of order dated 3/5/2024, the record of the secretary RTA Sagar has been produced in a sealed cover. Relief clause का आ गया? The effects necessary for disposal of the present petition in short are that the petitioner applied for grant of temporary permit to ply his bus on Sagar to Tikamgarh Road. Police system. In clause 5 of the said application, it applied for temporary permit. In clause 5 of the said application, it was merely mentioned as 87 bracket में 1 bracket में C of C temporary need. Police system. तो उसका ऑर्डर कौन सा है? जो भाई
शुरुआत में पिटिशनर आ गया, शुरुआत में फर्स्ट लाइन में आ गया पिटिशनर अप्लाई फॉर अ टेम्परेरी परमिट और रेस्पोंडेंट नंबर 5 अप्लाई फॉर अ टेम्परेरी परमिट.
सॉरी रिस्पॉन्डेंट नंबर 5 कर.
Contention may be recorded manner that
सर मैं लिखा है ना, आप ही के सामने लिखा रहा हूँ, डोंट वरी. आप
the locus is also very.
मैडम बहुत परेशान हुई मुझे.
They are a permanent holder, I am a temporary holder. Vehicles are different, there is no infringement of their constitutional rights manner.
मैडम मैं मुझे पहले एक सेंटेंस पूरा कर लेने दीजिए, मैं लिखाऊंगा ना, आप परेशान मत होइए. I will not only note down your submission, but I will meet out those submissions also. I am not in habit of running away from the arguments or submissions made by the petitioners or the litigants. If I am not in a position to reject your submission, then I never hesitate in allowing your submission and allowing and granting the relief. Relief is refused only if I am able to meet out your submissions. मैं रिलीफ बांटने में कंजूस नहीं हूं जैसा आप लोग सोचते हैं. बस आपका अधिकार होना चाहिए, इतना बता दीजिए. अधिकार है, आपको कुछ मांगने की जरूरत नहीं, सब मिलेगा.
ऑर्डर नहीं नोट शीट पे नहीं दिया, नो पर्टिकुलर ऑर्डर पास बाय देयर इज नो ऑर्डर ऑन द अकाउंट. ये ऊपर वो नोट शीट ऑन नोट शीट पे.
रोहित जी अब आप भी देख के बता दीजिए कि वेदर देयर इज एनी ऑर्डर और नॉट. इसलिए तो सर्टिफाइड कॉपी नहीं दे रहे थे ना. However, Shri Rohit Jain as well as Shri Brijesh Dubey, after going through the record of the Secretary RTA Sagar, clearly considered that the temporary permit was issued without passing any order. Police system. It is submitted by counsel for the petitioner that the temporary permit cannot be distributed like a substitute of permanent regular stage carriage permit, and section 87 has been incorporated to meet out the emergent eventualities requiring the plying of bus for a limited period on a limited route. Police system. In the application which was filed by the respondent number 5, there is no mention of the temporary need, and the use of a word temporary need cannot be said to be in conformity with the provisions of section 87 bracket में 1 bracket में C of Motor Vehicles Act. Per contra, it is submitted by counsel for respondent number 5 that the petitioner is having a regular stage carriage permit, whereas the petitioner is also a transporter and has a fundamental right to carry out his profession oblique business. Therefore, if the provision of law permits the issuance of a temporary permit, then filing an application for the same cannot be said to be bad in law. It is further submitted that if the Secretary RTA Sagar is issuing the temporary permit, then he should be scolded and punished, and the transporter should not be made to suffer on account of misdeeds of the Secretary RTA सागर. मैडम फंडामेंटल राइट हो गया, उनके मिसडीड्स हो गए. थर्ड कौन सा है?
The competency question that they have raised.
It is further submitted that in the writ petition, the petitioner has merely issued the question of competency of the respondent number of the Secretary RTA Sagar, and has not raised a question with regard to the provisions of section 87 1C of Motor Vehicle Act, and therefore the petitioner cannot be taken by surprise by pressing the said ground. Or, madam, it is further submitted that all her contentions may be considered. Rohit ji,
My lord,
issuing a temporary permit without an order. What will you say about that, sir?
we will file our reply. And what has happened in this case, the erstwhile Deputy Transport Commissioner, he delegated the past that.
Sir, delegation की बात नहीं कर रहा. Issuing a temporary permit without any order.
Cannot be seen that I go down to the, so I'll have to seek
The
instructions.
counsel for the state was directed to once again go through the record of the Secretary RTA, and he fairly conceded that there is no order granting temporary permit, and fairly conceded that issuance of temporary permit without any order by the Secretary RTA is not in accordance with law. However, it is submitted that the powers have been delegated to Secretary RTA to issue temporary permit. Police system. Heard the learned counsel for they. आपने कहाँ लिखा है, कहाँ था कि सर्टिफाइड कॉपी नहीं दे रहे हैं फॉर द पार्टीज?
That's 5.5.
It is the case of the petitioner that, in spite of the fact that the petitioner had filed an application for grant of certified copy of order granting temporary permit and all other documents, but the respondents number 3 and 4 did not supply the same. The petitioner had also relied upon the copy of application for grant of certified copy which has been filed as an extra P4. The aforesaid contention made by counsel for the petitioner is correct because even the order for grant of temporary permit does not find place in the record of the Secretary RTA. It is really unfortunate that the Secretary RTA, instead of recalling the temporary permit and checking the illegalities which are going on in his office, had tried to perpetuate the same by denying the supply of certified copy of the said document to the petitioner. That indicates that Shri, कौन है वो सज्जन? Sunil Kumar Shukla, respondent number 4, is involved in certain activities which are not in conformity with his official duties, be that whatever it may be. It is submitted by counsel for the respondent number 5 that once the law permits the issuance of temporary permit, and if the petitioner, being a transporter, had applied for issuance of temporary permit, then his fundamental right to carry out a business of the profession cannot be curtailed. Consider the submissions made by counsel for the petitioner, for the respondent number 5. So far as Article 19(1)(g) of Constitution of India is concerned, the same is not an absolute fundamental right. It is subjected to reasonable restrictions, and the state government or the central government is well within its right to place reasonable restrictions. The only requirement is that the reasonable restrictions must pass the test of reasonableness, having some reasonable nexus with objects sought to be achieved. unless and until the restriction imposed by an act is challenged, this court cannot consider its validity. But one thing is clear, that the provisions of Motor Vehicle Act have been meant for the benefit of the commuters and not for the benefit of the transporters. There are two provisions. Number one, for grant of regular stage carriage permit and for grant of temporary permit. Section 87 of course of Motor Vehicle Act reads as under. Section 87 1A provides that for conveyance of passengers on special occasions such as to and from fairs and religious gatherings, a temporary permit can be granted. Similarly, for the purposes of seasonal business, a temporary permit can also be granted. Apart from the aforementioned two reasons, a temporary permit can be granted to meet out a particular temporary need. इसको बोर्ड कीजिएगा. Particular, the use of word particular clearly means that the temporary need should be apart from the temporary needs mentioned in subsection A and B of across A and B of subsection 1 of section 87 of Motor Vehicles Act. What is this? Although it is submitted by a counsel for petitioner that section 87 of Motor Vehicles Act does not require that the transporter must disclose in detail of the use of the word particular before the word temporary need has to be given purposive interpretation. It is well established principle of law that the legislature has not used any word without any purpose. Therefore, this court, while interpreting a statute, cannot add or subtract any word unless and until the purposive interpretation is not possible for the system. The temporary permit cannot be distributed like a substitute of a regular stage carriage permit, and it has to be for a particular period to meet out a particular eventuality. The counsel for petition respondent number 5 is correct in submitting that the authorities are distributing the temporary permits like a substitute of the regular stage carriage permit, and was correct in submitting that action should be taken against such officers.
That is not.
And right in submitting that the respondent number 5 should not be made to suffer on account of misdeeds of the authorities for the system, be that whatever it may be. Since the petitioner, the respondent number 5 has decided to join the business of transportation, thus it does not mean that he can enjoy an absolute fundamental right under Article 19(1)(g).